Catch Texas in Color every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. All right, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to the Texas in Color Show, where we dive into real conversations on how Texas politics work affecting people of color, from City Hall to the state capitol. I'm your host, Ron Gordon, and today we are joined by someone who knows the power of local government, our very own Mayor Derrick Woods. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Ron. Listen, I appreciate what you're doing, being the voice to really educate and explain to people the power of their local government and how it's the lowest form and the form that's most closest to them. So I'm excited about being able to have this conversation with you and your audience and those who will be watching the replay as well. So I'm excited. Thank you for having me and seeing little old me out here in the town of Dumfries and be able to add value to Texas in color. Thank you, sir.
I really appreciate it. So let's start here. Why is local government so critical, especially for Black and brown communities?
Oh my gosh, that question is so loaded. How much time you got, Ron? When you talk about how important local government is, especially to communities of color, it's almost like saying how important was the Underground Railroad to Harriet Tubman, right? And when I got involved in local government, I didn't know what I didn't know. Right? I didn't have anybody come back into the hood that I grew up in and tell me, hey, you need to get to know who your mayor is and who your city council is. And the big question is why? Why do I need to know who those people are? Well, Ron, I'm glad you asked. Local government sets what they call land use policy and vision for the community, right? So if you wonder how that gas station comes in your community, if you wonder how that grocery store, you wonder how those title lenders or those people who are taken from your community, if you wonder how all of those type of things or what development comes, what potholes get filled, what street lights, what schools come to your community, all of that plays on what I like to call the part of government that's most accessible to you and your community, which is local government. And so it's important because it impacts everything you do on a day-to-day basis, right? And so when you go in that grocery store and you pay taxes, that local government gets a piece of that taxes. When you go to your gas station and you pay a little gas tax, your local government. And so they're the ones who are allocating how it's going to be spent, how it's going to be spent in the police department. How's it going to be spent in public works? How's it going to be spent on public transportation? How's it going to be spent on social services? How is it going to be spent on your local parks and your recreation? Like, if your park isn't up to par, it's because somebody in your local government isn't paying attention. So when you talk about how important local government is in the Black community, it's up there with the Underground Railroad. And Harriet Tubman went back on the Underground Railroad. Why? Because she tried to free a whole bunch of people. I think our role and Texas in Color's role is we're like the Harriet Tubmans. We're trying to go back and tell people, hey, local government is here and you have a role and a voice you have to play. But Ron, unfortunately, we're not taking a shotgun like Harriet Tubman. Harriet said, man, I freed over 1,000 slaves and I could have freed 1,000 more, except they didn't know they were slaves. So oftentimes you see her with this little pistol in her hand because by hook or crook, she had to go free her people. And so that's why I'm so excited about Texas in Color, because what you're doing is at least you're getting people the information. And once they get the information, it's up to them to make sure they're getting a little level of comprehension or understanding of what we're saying and how important it is and how they see their self in the world and the things that we're talking about. Look, I know you got more questions, but I told you that question was just so loaded because it's one of those questions that's near and dear to my heart. Like, I didn't get involved in local government until I had a problem. I call that my burning bush experience, right? I got kicked off the side of the road because they didn't have a policy that allowed for me to barbecue on the side of the road. And so I found myself going down thinking God got a sense of humor. I'm thinking I'm going down to complain about my problem. Moses thought he was going to try to stop the guy from beating up on one of his brothers who was a slave, ended up murdering him, ended up in the wilderness for 40 years and coming back. So now this thing that I thought was causing me pain became my purpose, right? And so out of my pain birthed my purpose. And so we're in these type of situations in local government. Once we see, we can't unsee. And when I got up there, I was like, why am I complaining about something that I feel like I could become the solution? And I got better ideas and I got better solution. And so oftentimes people that's watching don't know that they are the ones who actually are the solution to what's happening in their community. That they're complaining about things and they see problems in their community and they have ideas to make it better. Well, you either go share those ideas with your local mayor, with your local city council, with your local school board members, whoever's there, and help them be a solution to the problem. See, oftentimes we bring our complaints, but we don't bring our commitments to solving the problem. And so I like to tell people, don't bring your complaints, but also bring your commitment to being a part of the solution to this problem. I'm gonna stop now because you don't got me wound up with that question.
Well,
I was swinging for the fences.
well, you just said something that I tell everybody else to do. Nobody know the problems going out there if you don't get together and let them know what you need in your community. They assume they know what you need and they don't. Like you said, when they do the budget and all that stuff, if you don't voice your opinion, how are they going to know to even put that in the budget for you? And people, well, here he is again, another 3 years, nothing's done over it. Did you let them know? And I think that's the key right there. I was told by somebody, if you want to move the government, you need to get together as a collective, sit down and talk, write down your needs, and then give it to the right person so it could be addressed. Is that the best way of going about it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, build a relationship, right? I think Hamilton, people that play was underrated to a lot of people, but there was some fundamental principles that Hamilton had, right? And he talked about how the center of government became Washington, D.C., and how New York got Wall Street, right? And he said it was only two people in the room where it happens, and so where sausage is being made. Just the fact that you know that there is, like most people, and I don't know if they up here, but if you ever been to a local government meeting, put a 1 in the comments, and if you've never been to a local government meeting, put a 2, right? And so what I find is, Brother Ron, you probably got more 2s in your comments than you have 1s. More people who've never been to a local government meeting, who don't even know they have the access and the ability to go and watch how all of this stuff is being done. And it don't cost them nothing. They can get in for free. They can sit out and they can be in the room where it happens. And now they can hear the school of thought. They can hear the philosophy, the ideology, or how people debate and talk about some of the issues that's coming on. Also, the vast majority, if not all of your local government meetings, give citizens the opportunity to come speak for 2, 3, 5 minutes, whatever their local policy is. And they can sign in advance, or they can sign in on the day of, if that local government's policy allows them. And they can go on and voice what issues they see. Again, I'm telling you, don't bring your issue without bringing the solution, right? So you have your issues in the community. You talk about what bothers you or what pains. But after you say that, what is it that you want those local government people to do? You could also request a meeting with your mayor. You can request a meeting with your council people, right? And make sure you're not wasting their time, because they are very busy people. Like, we're moving at a fast pace. We got a lot of things going on. We're working on budgets. We're working on comprehensive plan. We're working on developments. We're working on all kinds of things. And so when you come in, don't come in with this wild concept of an idea. Come in with something you want to do, something that's been proven, and figure out what resources and what's your ask, right? It's the biggest, hardest part we got is when people come in. What is your ask? What is it that you want? How can I help you get from where you are to where it is that you want to be?
Okay, we're gonna move on to another question.
Come on.
You led in Virginia, and we're talking for Texas audience today. What similarity contrast that you see between local government in Virginia and what is happening here in Texas?
Listen, it's government is all the same. Government is I did a lesson one time, Ron, called "Friend Is Government Your Friend or Foe?" Right? And I went all the way back to the history of Plato's and Aristotle
Ooh.
forming this democratic form of government, right? Because I wanted to dive real deep into, is it your friend or is it your foe? And right, because this is a Greek philosophy, this local government that we're all in, right? This democratic society was an idea of Plato's and Aristotle. And when you really just give a, because I don't want to go into the whole, they realize that government is only as good as the people who serve in government. So friend or foe is based on if you have people in it that have your values, your beliefs, and all of that, or if it's not. And so when you talk about the similarities between Virginia and Texas, it's you just looking at the people. What do the people value? Right? Do they value the things that your community need? Right? Do they stand on the same principles that your community believes? Local government essentially is about how do we govern the resources that's coming in to build and develop this community. And one of the things I think the biggest challenge is most of your local government officials don't know is history is important. And I know right now all over the US they're trying to wipe out a lot of black history or mainly our history. And when people don't know where they came from, they lose their sense of identity. They lose their sense of culture, right? And most
Mhm.
communities don't know where they came from, how they were established. And when you don't know the purpose of a thing, abuse of that thing is inevitable, right? Meaning there's a normal use or there was an intent when people founded a certain community, right? Like my community was founded because it was a plantation. There was tobacco farming going on here. Most of Texas was in Mexico, right? And so, it was purchased and it was brought in. And so when you go back and you look at the nuances on how did you establish that community? What was some of the early things that the community want? And once you tie it into the history, you will see that what you're doing now is no different than what they were trying to do when they established the history. We just got more technology and more resources. I tell
Mhm.
people the new Dumfries that we're creating is just the old Dumfries rediscovered. And so history plays a major role in us understanding the differences and the similarities and getting people back to its origin and its purpose. Go back. What year was my community chartered? Like here in Dumfries, we're 1749, May 11th. We celebrate 276 years on May 11th, right? We'll be 276 years old, meaning
Mm.
we're 25 years older than America, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And and so when you look at us being established and the times and what they were trying to do in the people, it's the same thing they got to do in Texas when they look at their communities. And it will help your governing be so much more better. We can take emotions, feelings, all of that out of our everyday decisions if we focus on purpose and we focus on the original intent and we focus on getting things done.
Okay. Well, Texas has statewide voter suppression, court challenges, and deep politics divide. How can a leader in Texas keep civil engagement alive and effective, especially when the state seems designed to silence certain voices?
So you got to understand civil engagement, right? Meaning there's a responsibility on both sides. There's responsibility on the government and there's responsibility on the citizens, right? There needs to be mutual engagement. Like it's almost like a relationship, right? And this is good that you're asking this question. What we need again is the government doing their part, and their part of being engagement is platforms like this, showing up on platforms like this, showing up on your own. The beautiful thing is now we don't need the news and the newspapers no more, right? One of the ways I continue to try to keep people engaged is I have a website and I'm posting either weekly or monthly blog posts giving people information. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm posting articles and news about what's going on and educating. I'm showing up to the different community events, right? Invite your local elected officials to your galas, to your award ceremonies, to your churches, right? To your community events, and they will continue to stay engaged. So it's a mutually engaging part, right? Elected officials, we want to be out in the community and we want the community to be engaged, right? Now, oftentimes when there's a controversial issue that comes up, people say, I didn't know about it. Case in point,
Yeah.
I got a letter, I got a letter on my desk today when I came in from somebody saying, this project has been in the work for a year and a half, 2 years. Because the sign is up, the dirt is being moved. Oh, I'm outside of your community, but this is going to impact me. How can you build this right here? Right now, we don't have, and they cited all the public hearings, all the newspaper articles. So is it my fault that I didn't come knock on your door to get you engaged when in those same newspapers, those same public hearings, like all of this has been going on? So there's a responsibility on the community, just like it is on the elected officials on your level of engagement. And how level of engaged you want to be is based on what's interest to you. Just like you'll take the time to go learn boots on the ground, right? Learn the same thing with your local government, right? Those same type of line days. Like we'll take the time to go watch the YouTube videos, to study the TikToks and the reels. But you got to do that same thing with issues that matter to you in local government. So the level of engagement is on both sides, Ron.
Yeah, I agree with you. So let's go deeper. In both Virginia and Texas, people of color are often the backbone of the vote, but the last two benefits from policies. What is your message to leaders who wants to fix that?
Say it one more time because I want to make sure I understand the question.
Okay, in both Virginia and Texas, people of color are often the backbone of the vote, but the last two benefit from policies.
Yeah, policy. I think that, when you look at a policy standpoint, and I was having this conversation this weekend, we were talking about racism and stuff in local government. And I think that one of the biggest challenges we have in our community, right, is raising the financial IQ of our citizen, right? So let's talk about home ownership. Let's talk about entrepreneurs and creating jobs and businesses, right? And how these policies. Now, I'm not ignorant to the fact that policy created most of the wealth gap that we have. Redlining policies, right? You have policies where the Freedmen's Bank was started because Black people needed a place to bank and we couldn't go in certain places. And so policy plays a role in the wealth divide. And so now how do we now, I think the biggest policies we got to look at, right? We need to look at is not the DEI, but it's looking at these wealth policies. How do we reestablish wealth in these communities, right? And it's going to take, I think, raising the financial IQ. I've been struggling with, how do I, uh, how do how do I create a 700 club? Like I want to bring a segment of the community so that they don't get gentrified out as the community can develop, right? Because prices are going up, quite frankly, because nobody's building. So there's a supply and demand. People are having babies and the demand for houses is going up, right? And so now as a result, you have a low supply, but you got a high demand. So the prices of houses go up in a certain community. So you see it go from 80,000 to 300,000 over 10, 15 years, right? And so what are you doing? You're pricing a segment of your community out of those houses. And so my struggle with looking at the inequality of policies, and the mayor of New Jersey, Ross Barkley, he took a policy for the redlining policy, and he looked at HUD. And he said, well, I'm going to make HUD allow them to use their Section 8 to be able to buy houses. And we're going to, as a government, we're going to buy these houses and sell them back to the people for $1 and rehab it. And then they use their housing voucher to, now they can build equity in their property. They go in and get intermediate equity. And so that's an example of using policy to continue to create wealth, right? And so when we look at policies, it's the type of policies and what we want. Not just policies that make us feel good, but policies that Dr. Martin Luther King said at the end, not the 1963 Martin Luther King, but the 1968, who said, hey, listen, you got to start writing us some checks.
Yeah.
It became about economic empowerment. And I think those are the type of policies we need to look at, not so much policies on, hey, I want to be seen, right? The bus boycott wasn't just about being seen. It was about, we're going to squeeze your pockets a little bit, right? And then there was some type of advancement and being over there. So I think we have to be very strategic on the policies that we ask for and how they impact our. And I think the policies need to be inclusive on really the economic empowerment. How do we give people more access to funding, right? And the only way they get more access to funding is they have to have better credit scores, right? Because banks don't want to lend to them. And so the funding question can't go without the credit score question, can't go without, because I can't go to the bank and say, listen, I need you to give this small business a loan so they can open up a business in my community when they got a 550 credit score.
Yeah.
So there has to be, so you got to educate. You can't come to me as a mayor and complain and say, I don't have access to money or I don't have access to resources at the same time. And so I struggle with looking at both sides from that angle, Brian, if that makes sense from a policy standpoint.
Yeah.
And in inequities. And so I gave you an example how we take redlining and we flip redlining around in places like Newark, New Jersey, and other people start looking at how we can use some of them same policies to bring up the economic value. But at the same time, we got to look at it as a community holistically. When an opportunity shows up for policy change, are we prepared to take advantage of that policy change?
You know, I'm glad you brought that up because this weekend, I had a meeting with a couple of churches and community leaders and some people who's small business, and we sat down and we talked. How can we get the information out? What do we need to do? So we were just brainstorming on how to do that, and somebody brought up something that I really knew what was going on. Why is it sometimes that we conflict and go against each other, being in the Black community? We can't seem to compromise on one thing. And my whole deal was in the meeting said, now, what we need to do is find out, get a calendar together to find out who's doing what. Try not to bump heads on the same day. And when we do that, we're going to support each other. So that's what our strategy is, not to change how the will is already out there, but to figure out how can we reach other people that we can't reach. Because you just said something right there that made a lot of sense when, well, I didn't know about this was going on. Like I said, been in the newspaper, been on the news, been here for 3 months, and all of a sudden you don't know what's going on. So that is part of the problem. How do we reach the other, even though we did that former anyway, how do we reach the other people out there that is part of it and they feel that they're not? Does that make any sense?
Again, we go back to the Underground Railroad. Harriet Tubman struggled with this. You know, I realized this when I first got in office, that statement meant so much to me now that I've been elected for 12, 13 years, where Harriet said, I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more, except they didn't know they were slaves. Brian, it's a mentality, even though we go back, people gotta want to, right? We can't force them unless we take it a shotgun, but it's a mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we educate them to a way where it transform their mind and it transform their thinking? They're conformed to the pattern, and it's not detriment to us, but it's the environment that they grew up in. So they're conformed to the pattern of the environments that they grew up. This is all they know. I think John Hope Bryant talks about this in one of his books, The Memo, where he talks about if you grew up, all you seen is drug dealers and this and that, then that's all you aspire to be, right? And so how do we get them to be able to see other communities and other people in this position? Well, we got to get them in the rooms and get them exposed. And over a period of time, right? Because it's some people it's instantaneous. Some people have a Damascus Road experience and it's, oh,
Yeah.
There's an immediate transformation, but some people it takes time, like a seed in the ground. And so we're dealing with systematic programming. Ron, people don't see what's there, they see what they've been programmed to see. And until they change the way they see a thing, the thing they're looking at will never change. Let me say it in slow motion. Until you change the way you're looking at a thing, the thing you're looking at will never change. The glass will always be half empty if you can't never see it as being half full.
Mm.
And so you don't see what's there, you see what you're programmed to see. And so whatever you see, you're right, because that's what you see. That's your perspective. I need to change sides and put on your eyeglasses because you probably can't see something with your glasses off that I can see with my normal eyes, right? And so
Right.
it's all perspective. And so the challenge is, how do we, because you're dealing with mindset. And so we have to inspire or motivate people to think different. This is why I love Steve Jobs. He said, think different, right? Solomon
Yeah.
said, as a man thinketh, that's the man. And so we're dealing with mindset. How do we
Mm.
reset their minds? That's
That.
ultimately what, I mean, I know I'm giving it to you real simple, but I can't make it no plainer. We can't drag them to the water and put their face in it and try to force them to swallow and drink the water. It's a systematic mindset type of situation.
They gotta have that aha moment or come to Jesus moment for that. Now, somebody just who got several questions in here. They working on you this morning, Mayor.
Let's talk. Come on, I'm here. Look,
Okay, what are some of the challenges with serving in local government?
the biggest challenge is uh I think it comes from, most of the time, one of the challenges infighting, right? If you don't have a team that's all rowing the boat, right, in the same direction, then got one person rowing this way, one person, all of that. So I think one of the challenges is, for most leaders, is being able to communicate their vision, right? Without a vision, the community perishes, right? These are fundamental principles that Solomon taught us, who I heard was the wisest man to ever live, had one of the most prosperous kingdoms in the world. So we just take these principles and we apply these principles in local government, we'll be successful, right? A community has to be pushed or driven off of a clear vision. Here's where I see we going. And when people get excited and motivate, they'll catch on to that vision. So the
Mhm.
challenges is everybody's not hearing the vision, right? And the vision got to be repetitive and it got to be simple that people catch on. I mean, Obama was so popular because we said, yes, we can. We all had some type of hope in some type
Mhm.
of future. And so I think the challenge is, from a community and from a leadership standpoint, is to communicate a vision and a direction. Here's where I want to take you as a community, and being able to communicate. And if you can communicate a vision to the community, and the community buys into the vision, the community sees that you're fully convicted, that you have purpose, right? People will get behind you on that type of vision. They say that a leader who's going out and nobody's following is just somebody taking a walk, right?
Mm.
And so you can only lead in your area of gifting as other people believes in those gifts and those talents.
Yeah. Somebody wants you to talk more about economic development with the local government.
Yeah, economic development, again, it comes with a plan and a vision, right? How do you develop economically, right? The biggest thing of economics, right, is how do you raise the value of community, right? So economics deal with creating jobs. It deal with bringing in businesses. It brings in more houses. How do you make your community a place that people want to work, play, and live in your community? And so it's you have to identify currently what's in your community. You have to look at what's in your comp plan. What is the identity of your community, right? What is your community known for, right? If your community known for sports, is it known for high school sports, right? Is it known for, like, what do you want to build the identity? Is it food? Is it entertainment, right? And once you identify clearly, like for me, I said we should build this around food and entertainment. It made it easy when the right opportunity showed up when you know what you want. You can't have economic development and not know what you want or know what you stand for. Because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, right, Brian? And so you got to
Yeah.
figure out what you stand for, right? When data centers came, they say, "Hey, do you want data centers?" I said, "Food, entertainment, data centers." Nope, data centers is on the outside. It just didn't fit or didn't align with the identity or what you want to build. And so with that, the right opportunities comes. When you look at the opportunities, are you going to create jobs? What kind of jobs? How many jobs? When you add all the jobs up, what's the economic impact of this community? And so economic development deals with what's your strategy for attracting and retaining businesses? What's your strategy for talking to all the existing landowners, right? Because economic development deals with who owns and controls the land in your community. Are you having a sit down and a round table? Like one of the first things I did, Ron, when I took over the realms of mayor is I had a meeting with all the business owners, right? Because they controlled the majority of the land. You had homeowners, a bunch of renters, but I need to talk to the business community and figure out what they felt. And I needed to hear from them what their vision was for their particular property. What do you want to do with your property? What do you want to do with your property? How are we going to bring in collectively? And once you have those discussions, it's almost like a listening session, right?
Yep.
You need to and so then you meet with the community, you begin to communicate, and you start this whole visioning process. And I think holistically, the economic development then begins to happen, and that's how you develop. I've fortunate enough, I have a small community, but we have created $1.2 billion in regional economic impact in less than 6 years.
Mm.
Right? We brought in over 600 jobs. Right? We've shut down a landfill and turned the landfill into a landmark where now that landfill, it was a construction landfill, but there were 15 acres that was never touched that we were able to build on and turn the landfill. It was a construction landfill, not a kitchen household type one. But so we take that construction debris and turn it into a 80-acre park and then build a $500 million gaming resort on a landfill,
Oh,
right? That
yeah.
created 500 jobs that sits right off of Interstate 95. I mean, this stuff doesn't happen if you don't have a vision for economic development. And so you got to
Yes.
sit down and really get into those type of rooms and understand that. Really be astute. I'm just a student, Ron. I get in the right rooms and I'm always asking the right questions. And this is
Yes.
good because the questions that people ask always dictate the lessons. So if you're an elected official in local government, make sure you always, when you get in the room, that you got a question, because when you meet somebody, they can't tell you everything they know, and they don't know what you need. And so your question is going to dictate the lesson.
Okay. So, which brings to this question. Has governing changed with the new administration?
No, governing is still the same, right? Governing is still the same. You got somebody else driving the bus. It's just the black people, we've been doing this for years. It's called code switching. Just change your language. You're in a different room. You just got to speak the language of the administration who's driving the buzz. Okay, they don't use DEI, so what do? Okay, we want to talk about an underserved, underutilized community, right? And so it's just understanding the buzzwords in those communities. Because on local government, local government don't care if you're blue, red, white, black, or purple. Your pothole isn't Democrat or Republican. Your street lights aren't Democrat or Republican, right? They just want to get the problem just wants to get solved. Infrastructure, like we all have aging infrastructure. It has nothing to do with DEI. It has nothing to do with black or white or rich or poor. Well, more poor than rich, right? And so your aging infrastructure, it benefits the federal government to enhance these aging infrastructure, like our water systems, our sewers, because it's going to cost them more money to have to fix them after a major disaster than it does to be proactive about fixing it. And so
Right.
it's understanding how to, as we say, Ron, code switch.
Oh,
we got to speak.
switch.
We got to speak their language.
Yeah, you're right about that. When you're talking about economic and the money, I read something years ago saying that money in the black community only lasts 5 minutes before it goes out. And
Yeah.
we need to start supporting our local black businesses.
Mhm.
And I went out and talked to some to find out what's going on, what's happening. You know what I found out the number one reason was?
What's that?
Service.
Mhm.
It was service.
Yeah, a lot of
They
the soft skills. A lot of the young people don't have the soft skills no more. They don't want to work. I mean, even I get complaints from a lot of the local restaurants. Even I run a local barbecue. I still have issues with service now. And I don't know if it's this social media network, the social skills aren't there that they used to be, right? You know,
right.
back when we used to have to go out and deliver newspapers, and we used to have to go out and roll silverware. You never worked in a restaurant until you washed dishes and stuff first, and all of that. You wasn't in the front of, and so, um, we got a lot of work to do in areas of service, and it's training. But let me tell you something. Chick-fil-A don't make that excuse. Chick-fil-A go out and train all of their people to have the same level of excellence in service. So we can't make excuses. We just got to continue to fight to get better, right? As black business owners in levels of service, and to go out there and to really fight for your customer, fight to be known, fight to make and promote yourself, make yourself known and thought well of. Now more than ever, it's easier to be a entrepreneur with the advent of, I mean, you got so many artificial intelligence from video
Yeah.
making to text the graphic to text the video. Like you have so much avenues and more ways to be successful than ever before. It is. And it's just going to take you working and learn. Ron, let me tell you what one thing I learned. The only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary.
Hmm.
And so people don't want to work to be successful. We are in a super microwave, toaster oven type of generation where people don't take the time like grandma when she started cooking on Saturday just for Sunday dinner, right? Well, that thing took a little bit of time. We
Yeah.
don't have that type of generation, that mindset. People want it now, like success loves speed type of thing. And
Hmm.
they don't understand uh, that bridge called process is more important than you getting to your purpose, because it's in process where you develop, and it's not about the destination, but it's about who you become as a person in that process, right? Because I think they said if you was to take all the money today and divide it out equally amongst all the people right now, they said it'll probably end up back in the hands of the people who already have it,
That
because
point.
it's a certain
Yes.
mindset. You like most lottery winners become broke within a certain amount of years. Why? Because there was no process. They became instant millionaires. There wasn't no process. And so when you talk about it, there's a process. Somebody you got to become to handle that level. I had to go through a whole bunch just to get to where I'm at now as a mayor, to be able to do what I want to do. And you got people that just want to jump in a position and they don't want to go through process. They don't want to.
Yes.
They see the shine, but they don't know the grind.
You know, you just said something there. They want to get there and be in that position, but a lot of them bring their own agenda to ram it down people's throat without thinking. And that's scary. When they get up in there, instead of worrying about the people, they worry about themselves. And to have somebody in office like that is scary.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't born in Dumfries, but it's like when you serve as a local government official, that community is born in you. So now I become what I like to call a chief ambassador. Like I embody the
Mhm.
stories of the senior citizens. I embody the stories of the teacher. I embody the stories of those who have laid the groundwork before I even got in this position. I become astute so much so that I recite the history better than people who grew up and was born in this community,
Mm.
right? Because I have embraced, like I have studied to show myself approved in this community. Well,
Yeah.
I started to tell you the story, the history, tell you we was a tobacco plantation, can tell you that Pocahontas and John Smith came down the Potomac River, saw this little inlet, tell you about John Smith naming this after his hometown in Scotland, right? I have learned the history and the stories of the black families who were free slaves who was in this community, right? And so I've done my due diligence because again, I tell you when purpose isn't known, abuse is inevitable because I try to line all my decisions into the purpose of why this community was being built.
Mm. All right, final thoughts.
Come on.
If you could give one piece of advice to inspiring leaders or community organizers in Texas who feel discouraged right now, what would that be?
First of all, encourage yourself, right? Don't get stuck on where you are right now because time is the only change is the only constant we have in life, right? Meaning, don't make a permanent decision for a temporary problem. And what we're going through right now is temporary. It's not permanent. And my mentor on the back wall here, he says, never waste a perfectly good crisis. And so if you feel like you're going through a crisis, always look for the opportunity, right? There's an opportunity to think different. There's an opportunity to see from a different lens. There's an opportunity to really color outside of the lines. Just like during the Great Depression, all people talk about is the people who lost a bunch of wealth. But they didn't talk about the amount of the millionaires and businesses that was born out of the Great Depression. See, through every great crisis, there's an opportunity for a major change or a great shift. The levees getting destroyed in Louisiana, somebody got real wealthy and rich during that whole time, right? One person's crisis is another person's opportunity. And so to those who are organizing right now, don't look at how things are now, but imagine and start to see a Texas that you want to see, right? Because the best way to predict the future is to create it. So that means you got to begin to now. I need you to fall in love with the Texas of the future that you see. I need you to fall in love on what it is because people are looking for hope right now. And people buy into somebody who can see further than their eyes can see. Don't get stuck on what you've seen yesterday. Don't get stuck on what you're seeing right now. But we have the ability to imagine the Texas we want to see. We have the ability to imagine the local community that we want to see. And so cast your net far and wide, organizers. Begin to find candidates who can communicate a vision that people will buy into. Begin to help fundraise for people who you believe in, who genuinely care about and can help bring, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for innovative ideas. You're looking for somebody with vision. You're looking for somebody with passion, somebody with fully conviction. And I need you to tap into those people. So don't get stuck at where you at right now. Don't focus on yesterday because once thought is twice lived. I need you to imagine and create the future that you want to create. Be encouraged, organizers. Be encouraged.
Yes. Well, Mayor Derrick Woods, thank you for reminding us that the power doesn't just trickle down. It can rise from the ground up. We appreciate your time and your voice. All
Listen,
right, sir.
it's been my pleasure. Thank you, Texas. Y'all stay in color. I know that you can do anything that you put your mind to. So continue to focus on, continue to dream. A person with no hope has no future. So keep hope alive.
All right, this has been Texas in Color. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep building power where you stand. Thank you for watching Texas in Color. Please tune in every Wednesday at 11 a.m. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button so you'll be notified each and every time we go on live.